Welcome, B'Shena, to the Aramaic School of Light every Wednesday evening and tonight. And we have a special tonight, the three of us. We're going to try to do this every first Wednesday of each month for the what I call the trio. Everything based on Aramaic and the teachings of Jesus. All right. We're going to start with the Lord's Prayer, and Reverend Hanny is going to do so.
عون دوشميا نتقداش شماخ تأتي ملكوتاخ نهوي صويانخ إكنا دوشميا أبر حاولا لحمة سنقانا يومنا واش وقلان حوبين إكنا داب حنان شوق لحيوين ولا تعلن لأنسيونا إلا بصن من بيشة مثول دي لاخي ملكوثة حي لو تشبحته العالم عالمين آمين.
Amen. All right. So let's begin. And I thought the first thing that came to me today is I'd like for us to talk about this one particular word. It's called religion. And a lot of people don't like the word. Some people love it. Some people live in it. And uh, I'm just going to mention a few things, and then we'll turn it over to all of us do anything. What I'm going to say is the word religion comes from Latin. It is not in the scriptures. It'll only be in certain translations of the Bible, but not in the original Aramaic Peshitta text. The word religion is not there. They always quote you the letter that James wrote, which is really, his name is not James, it's Jacob. But it's a long story how we got James. But anyway, it's really the Epistle of Jacob. And that comes right after the book of Acts in Aramaic texts. With us, they come towards the end after Paul. No, Paul is last. That's in, if you're looking at the original Peshitta text, there is no book of the Revelation. And the last things you read in the Aramaic text is Paul, not John or what we call James, but Jacob and Peter. They come in there, but not Paul. He's last. Okay. So they always quote James for the word religion, but it's not there in Aramaic. The idea in Aramaic that they use that's we would say equivalent to it, but not the word religion, is the word urha. Urha, the way, the path. That is something we travel on. Okay, but the word religion comes from Latin religio. That's how we say it in the Latin, religio. But it comes from the verb religare. So religare in Latin means to reconnect, to rebind, to tie. That's exactly the simple meaning of the word, but it has changed. It has turned into something else. And before, I didn't want to get into that because I just wanted to throw it open for the three of us to go into discussion. I have my certain ideas, and I know you all may have something on your heart and mind. So I'll leave it to you all to start.
Well, since we talked about covering this, I've been reflecting how when I speak about Jesus, I always speak about the movement. I don't and the fact that in Aramaic it's the way, and I think some of that carried over time. We have a lot of churches called the way because it is a way of living. It's a way of traveling through this experience, and sometimes taking a few steps back to shed off some of the stuff that we gather along the way. And it definitely is a much more powerful way of describing following Jesus, who's leading us down that path, than what came to be the religion. And last week, when I spoke about my experience in Italy, I could see how the religion was formed. I could see how the structures were already in place. So it makes sense that it's Latin. So it's Greek and Latin that carried that over. And then instead of being, they were scared of Christianity because it was a movement. It had no head. It had many heads and many formats and many communities. They called them cults. And that's why at one point they was like they kept fighting with them and persecuting them, and they kept coming back and coming back and coming back. So then they wanted them to become a religion. I'll talk more. Rebecca, any thoughts?
I love the timing of this. Recently, I told Robbie already, and some of you who follow me on other platforms have heard me talk about this. But recently, the Spirit really put a strong message on me to create and launch a program called Recovering from Religion. And that's not to say, let's be against God, let's be against spiritual practices, let's be against gathering in His name. That's not to say any of that. But it is to say that once the way that any of us had the power and authority to walk in became something that was a commodity that only someone standing in a certain position, wearing a certain cloak, with a certain ring, with a certain title, only they could be the purveyor of the power that came from Creator. Once we created these philosophies that indoctrinated the masses, we didn't just introduce organized religion as belief systems. Whenever there is, and I'm going to get a little clinical for a minute, whatever your belief system is for any of us, when one has a belief system, that belief system creates a rigid structure of construct in the brain, in the central nervous system of a human being. So you don't just have thoughts and feelings based on your belief system, you have your entire personal ideology based on a belief system. And that nervous system triggers how your brain operates, how your organs work, the emotions that govern you. So religion is a belief system. It's been created to be a fixed belief system. What is it when you look at a church's doctrine? What do they call it? Their statement of belief, right? All what do you believe? And then you got to go and look and see the 8 things. Well, do you believe in the Trinity? Do you believe that Jesus died for your sins? Do you believe he was born again? Do you believe? And it's this. Do you believe this? Check, 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 check. Don't believe in that one. Well, no pass. You'll have to go to the next building and see if you can check all the boxes over there.
Mhm.
That's completely creates a complete disconnect for a human being who was sent as a spirit to occupy a physical form for just a few minutes of life and then go back to Creator. That makes this person disconnected from that soul essence. They're now just being mandated and governed by regulations, and the nervous system has no more room for the spirit to talk and commune with that individual. Now that person is conforming. They are obeying a doctrine. They are a good soldier in the army. And there's no room for them to be an independent occupant of the essence of Creator. There's no room for them to be quiet and let Creator speak into them and for them to self govern. There's only room to be obedient. And if you're not, there's consequences.
You're out.
Right. Yes. Well, the word reconnect means to connect with God, individually connect with God. But as Rebecca said, and as Hanny said, once the movement, as Hanny said, once the movement, the way began to go into the West. And that starts with Rome. And then Constantine took over the church in 325 AD. He did it for a reason because there were two other emperors in Rome besides himself at that time, and he knew he could win it over if he adopted Christianity. But he never did, not until the day, he never was baptized, never any of that, but he took in charge of the church. And in Roman and Greek world, everything was based on this belief system. In other words, we moved from something that was from heart to heart, soul to soul, person to person, reconnecting with God and with one another. This is the idea of the real, true sense of the word religion. And it has to do with an inner sense, not an outward. An outward, we have boundaries, we have different cultures, we have different races, but under that, in the inner, we connect in the inner where there are no boundaries. That's why you can connect. Everything in the universe is connected. We are not separated. Oh, I didn't mean to get into that because that has to do with coming up in Saturday, not this Saturday, but a week from Saturday, where I'm talking about God, humanity, and the universe. The
That was your free
mystery.
sneak preview, everybody. But if you haven't,
Yeah,
you can
I
go and
didn't mean to get
register.
into that.
Register,
Any-
register, register. You still have time.
but this is, I'm still sticking with the word religion and its original Latin meaning. Hmm?
Yeah.
And it's that connection, but it's an inward connection. It's why you don't need, as you said, we are recovering from religion. We all of us are recovering from it. And when I got a hold of the Aramaic text and worked with Dr. Lamza, boy, I reconnected with Jesus. I reconnected with God. I reconnected with the ancient world, reconnected. There was no such thing as an ancient world. All of a sudden, I was a part of it. I did. I became a part of it. And the simple teachings of Jesus. Jesus didn't come to start another form of religion. He didn't even come to reform Judaism. No, he did not come to reform Judaism. What he did was, don't think, this is his own words, don't think that I've come to weaken the Torah or the Nevi'im, the law and the prophets. He didn't come to do that. He came rejoining us to God apart from our ritualization of God. And everyone has their own ritualization of a deity. I don't care what it is. We all have that, and all nations do it. And some, like we have here, we don't believe in any gods, so, but then they ritualize their own personal belief.
Yeah.
It's just as strong as religious beliefs. It's just as powerful, and they can get just as mean with their personal beliefs as with religious beliefs. Because it's beliefs. It's not a joining of heart to heart. It's not an opening of one with the other. Well, I don't want to talk anymore because I know there's three of us here. I'm just throwing it open for us to continue. If I should say something that'll spark you or you want to continue with something, I want to make room for that tonight too.
Yeah, I've got.
Go
Yeah, go
ahead.
ahead, Hanny.
I was thinking, so part of religion and part of structure is hierarchy. And then when you study Jesus, first, he never wanted to be above anybody in the movement. And he demonstrated that throughout, all the way to the end when he washed the feet of his disciples, which probably boggled their mind. See,
It did.
and I know in early criticism of Christianity, there was a lot of criticism of the apostles. So even the people who went against Christianity early on, they said, "Oh, Jesus, a good guy, probably, could have been stronger, but what his followers did really messed things up." So I don't want to beat on that drum, but the fact that just looking at him and how he behaved, how he refused to be honored as a person, always the glory was to God. Always God was the good. And then the highest state that he gave us to achieve when he was telling us to kind of like really rise up and start acting spiritually. He said, "You will be known as the children of God." So that was the highest state we can achieve. But then he defined what that God is. He defined the father, the loving parent, the caring parent. So it's like act like that. And that's what was hard for anybody to come and attack the early believers, is because they didn't spend their time studying a text. They didn't have a lot of these texts. They had stories and parables and so forth, but they started elevating themselves. They started refusing to play in the mud, to have enemies, to go fight against, and because of that, this was a very dangerous movement and still is. I mean, we won't have war if the Jesus way dominates earth. And it doesn't have to be Christianity. It doesn't have to have a label. It just to have a label of goodness. So
That's the beauty.
before you go, Rebecca, I want to remind everybody that we will give you about 20 minutes towards the end of this talk to ask any questions to any of us, all of us. If you want to address it to one of us, put a name on it. If you just want us to discuss it, use the Q&A button and do that, please. Sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
we don't
No,
have a
no,
Q&A,
that's
but
good.
we have what it says uh, more. And if you press on more, then you go to Q&A and put your question in there, okay? And if you just put it in the chat, we won't get it. It'll be the Q&A, and you have to go to more, and it'll tell you which ones you can choose from, and they have the Q&A right there. All right, Rebecca.
Well, I love that we've distinguished, thank you, Robbie, that the word religion that we're using here in the West is technically Latin. It's a European term.
Mhm.
But it's not like the practices of religions haven't been happening for millennia all around the world. As Robbie's saying, cultures have perceived deities and created ways to honor, worship, celebrate, serve, fear, be governed by that deity and what they believed that deity stood for. And that was happening at the time of Jesus, too. There was not just Judaism for the tribes of Israel, there were Judaisms.
Mhm.
And the fight for who is right is not new. And it didn't start in America and it didn't start when Jesus was walking. It comes with the nature of human being. That is what his whole message was you want to be right because you're a man and that's a woman and you're right and she's wrong. You want to be right because you're the Jew and this is a non-Jew, so now you're right and they're wrong. You want to be right because you're the master, this is the slave. Jesus was saying no matter what it is you believe and no matter how you practice it, there were the earthy vegan plant people. There were the carnivore fighters, warriors. There were the elite that stood with all of the gold and the candles and the altar. Everyone had their way. And they were fighting over whose way was right because ultimately, what religion has become across the board is a power struggle, a control tactic, a
Mhm.
way to spiritually gaslight and manipulate people, to fear monger and perpetrate false identities into the masses. Because as we're hearing, if Orhat Alaha
Mhm.
was really what saturated the critical mass of the population of the world, What policeman would you need? I don't need a policeman in my life. Nobody has to tell me, Rebecca, don't steal, don't kill, don't sleep with that woman's husband. That's not your husband, that's her husband. No one has to tell me that. But when we are in our broken states, when we are working from our wounds, when we are working from our fears, when we are working from cultural and psychological strongholds on what you can be and what you can't be, and if you're that, you're going to hell, and if you're this, you can go to heaven, but maybe if that you'll do this way, all of that really disturbs who we are as people. Our identities as individuals
Mhm.
become inauthentic, and we're just doing what we got to do to get by. And so then we are stealing, and we are with the next door neighbor's spouse, and we are doing things that violate our own selves, let alone each other. And this is why Jesus was saying, let people be, leave them alone, teach them only to repent, turn to Creator. That's it. If they eat meat on Friday, that's their business. If they baptize through sprinkle or immersion, grape juice or wine, women in pants or skirts, covered heads or uncut, that's not what's going to make it. It's the inner space you hold and the consciousness that you occupy and that governs your deeds and your identity. Are you righteous, meaning authentic? Are you in your true identity that Creator gave you, or have you conformed to this world and made this world your belief system, your religion? I don't know that I
Yeah,
had anything more to say.
it's okay.
That was
I'm
more
ready.
probably
I'm
a
ready to
rant than
say
a
something
teaching,
now.
but you got it
Yeah,
anyway.
I'm ready to say some more too. When someone asked me one time, and I said Jesus didn't come to give us another religion, they said, "Well, what did he come to do?" I was challenged with that one time, and I said, "To start a family." He never married. He never did anything that we normally do. He never married. And I said, and therefore he is going back to the old understanding of, if I can use that word, religion, but it's really the old way, the ancient way was the family way. And they said they didn't get what I was saying when I said that family way. I said that means you have a father. It means you have brothers and sisters. It means you have a mother. This is what Jesus did. The language of the gospel is definitely family. Why would he constantly call God Father? Hmm? And 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 he was the Son. But we even distorted that. We distorted and ruined the whole simplicity of Jesus' language of having a family. And
Yeah.
this is why he said that you love one another, make people disciples, not church members. Whoops. Not church members, but disciples. You can be a member of a church. Jesus wasn't talking against them, but he didn't go into all the world and make church members. He said, and disciple all the nations. Disciple them. Disciples of what? Disciples of love, which was part of the teachings of Jesus, the strongest part of Jesus' teaching. And when you love, you forgive. And all that comes into it because God is love. That's what his disciples fully realized when they wrote the epistles. Hmm? Look at the epistle of John. It's nothing but love, love, love all the way through. Hmm? How did he learn that? He learned it from Jesus. This was a shock. Look at Jesus' own language. I was talking to Rebecca on the phone today, and I thought, oh, when you think about the Gospel of John and what we've done to it, because they use the Gospel of John as we excommunicate people using the teachings that are in the Gospel of John. We make Jesus God according to the Gospel of John because we misunderstand what Jesus is saying in that gospel. When his disciples, this is what I said to someone on the phone, well, to Rebecca on the phone today. I said, when Jesus was with his disciples, this is the 14th chapter of the Gospel of John, and he's with his disciples, and they're absolutely being blown by everything he's saying in the 14th chapter of the Gospel of John. That's when he tells them not to worry, and he's going to fix a place for them. But then one of the disciples still gets upset, and he says, "Well, if you show us the Father, we'll be satisfied." And Jesus answers them and says to them, "I've been with you all this time, and you do not recognize me." Well, meaning, I'm showing the Father.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how people take that? That's when Jesus is declaring he's God. No, that's showing you that he's a son and he's declaring his Father. A good son knows his good Father. And what he says is, when you see me, you see the Father.
Yeah.
Because spoken like a good son, not spoken in a sense of theology. And what he's getting at here is that he is God. No, he uses this as a metaphor, but a deep, loving, caring metaphor. And in that simple language, when he says, when you see me, you see the Father, like a son, a true son. Yeah. You want to see the Father? See me.
You're looking at him
I'm
when you
his
look at me.
son.
I
I'm
use
the
this
image of him.
I say this all the time to people. I say if you hear me teach, talk, pray, speak, you have heard my father Zaya. If you look at me, see my smile, feel my hug, you have met my mother Sonia.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am them. I am them personified as Rebecca.
Yeah. Yeah.
And here you have creator, source and sustainer of life, who by any name is the source and sustainer of life, by the way. You can call it whatever you want to make you feel good, but it doesn't change it anymore by the name you give it. It is expressing itself right here through those of us present.
Right?
Yeah.
This is why the creator, the reference to even the birds that fly, fish in the sea, seeds on the ground. The Messiah was showing us that we were not just connected to one another as a body of brothers and sisters, but we were connected to everything that the Creator created. It's an entire ecosystem of spirituality, physically materialized and articulated and particulated as trees and grass and birds and puppies and Reverend Rocco Erico and Reverend Annie and Rebecca and all of you. The creation is a reflection of the creator. And Jesus saw the creator in every creation. Not the girl ones and not the boy ones, not the Jewish ones and not the pagan ones, he saw creator. He looked at everybody and everything like, wow, this is what my dad made. This
Yeah.
is what this is our family's state, planet Earth. So why am I going to create hard feelings with my brother Hanny? Why would I do that? To what gain? When I stub my toe, my face winces. It's a funny thing. Yours might do the same. Why? I didn't stub my face because it's connected. It's one body. And what human beings have psychologically, academically talked themselves out of is that we're one. Not that I own you or you own me, but that we're connected. We don't belong to each other. We're part of each other. And Jesus was pointing that out. He's saying we're all one. There is the singularity that birthed all of this. And so we're all part of it. So when you cause harm to another, you're really causing harm to yourself. If Jesus had a religion, it was the religion of oneness. And that oneness then made him say, I have to love you, you're me. I cannot hurt you, you're me. I cannot kill you and beat you and talk harmfully about you and to you. You're part of me. That's the family is of spirit, different bloodlines, one soul source.
Yeah.
Mm.
And the West really suffered from the literal interpretation of the Bible. I think that we ran into a lot of problems because as the Roman Empire was ruling this whole area, including the Eastern people we're talking about. So, and Jesus saw through that, and he wanted to break through that, and his behavior was. I can just see how many of his disciples and followers were constantly in shock when he healed a Roman soldier's child or worked on the healing of that. When he actually interacted with a woman who was Canaanite. When he went to the Samaritan woman and spoke with her, he broke so many taboos to
Mm.
show that human connection. And then, but we go, as Rabbi said, we go pick a verse in John 14 or a verse in Matthew 28 or whatever, and then start tearing the whole concept down. And that was it's strange to, maybe it's not strange, but that's how a lot of the people who are defending the pagan religions they had perfected the images of their gods and their belief systems, while early Christianity was basically just moving in different directions, and that kind of threatened it as well as threatened anything it interacted with. But the West definitely took things literally. They didn't understand the relationship, the Eastern relationship of the Father and the Son. They had no concept of it. So if you don't have a concept of it, then you're looking at, Hercules, and you're looking at the gods of Rome and Greece and how they slept with human women and had demigods and so forth. And they took Jesus into that realm. That's why I said when I went to Italy, all I could see is the Virgin Mary and baby Jesus, because the Virgin Mary and again took an Eastern. You talk to my aunts, you talk to my grandmothers. They talk about how an angel came to them and told them that you're going to have a child and it's going to be a male, and they know that was that's a blessing, that's a dream that they wanted all their lives as they're growing up. But then if you put it in writing and you give it to a scholar in Rome, they're going to tear it apart, right? Or misunderstand it. So we suffered a lot from that, and that's I think where religion was born, and that movement almost lost its way.
Mm. How true. How true. It it's for today. We're still suffering that today,
Mm.
not just in the ancient world. And and we made it a dogma, which took it right out of the realm of the inner heart and the inner sense of a person. Mm. That's where we connect. That's where we really truly connect. And when you connect with God, it's always in the inner. It's in the inner sense of yourself. Mm. And this is what is so missing in everything. And it's a family. That's what Jesus. That's why I don't use the word religion. Mm. And that's why Jesus said, "I am the way, the truth, mm, and the life." Right?
Yeah.
So because he used common metaphors for it. I am a path. I'm just a path for you to walk on, for you to get the simplicity of what and that's the word I use, simplicity. And that's so tough. And jokingly, I used to say this all the time when I used to give lectures everywhere in the United States and overseas. And I used to say, I have one thing against Jesus, just one thing. And they'd all look at me surprised when I would say that. And they want to know what I had against him. Too simple. Too simple. Because we stumble over it. We fall over it. It's too simple. Who could take like that simple statement I made earlier? If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. They built a tremendous doctrine out of that. Jesus is God. No. He's saying he's in his sonship. He's in his sonship, and a good son reveals the Father, does the work of the Father, the art of the Father, the teachings of the Father. We're talking about the ancient Near East. Mm-hmm. That's why they shut up afterwards when he said that, because they understood what he was talking about. See, but yeah. We didn't in the West, and we made something that wasn't there, wasn't there at all. That's the simplicity of Jesus' teachings, all through his teachings. And the only thing I think is the hardest thing, well, let me get back to simplicity, is then I'd say, well, we didn't have to worry about him keeping it simple because the church fixed it later. They did. We made it complicated. We made Jesus complicated. We made his teachings complicated. We twisted everything we could possibly twist into a new direction, and we lost it. But we call it theology, or we call it a high esteem thing, and don't you dare cross it. Don't you? They burned people for saying things that did not agree with the church teachings. They burned them at the stake. In fact, what I'm going to be teaching on Saturday, I'm going to be mentioning an Italian man who began to see these things, but most people haven't heard of him, but an Italian fellow who heard it. And what did the church do? They burned him alive, and they tied his tongue with a clamp so that while he was burning, he could not let out the truth. The church, listen to me, the church of Jesus Christ, Christian church. Yeah. That's in the past. It's in the past. Okay. But nonetheless, it still happens today. And I like what you said too, Rebecca, it's the human mind that does it. I'm right, you're wrong. And I don't care what it is, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, it's the human mind that's not under the guidance of love, of God. God is love, under mercy, under compassion, under kindness. That's what it is. How simple, do you see how terribly simple it is? But we dressed it up. We built cathedrals. We built statues. We built gold. We built windows, a stained glass window of Jesus and the disciples, or statues of them, and put them on roofs, all in Rome. So you can see all the 12, and they're all old men. Instead of the young fishermen who couldn't read or write. Yeah. Come on now. Why didn't he go for the elite that had smarts, that could do all these things, that would really push it forward? No. He went to fishermen, tax collectors, harlots. Oh my God. And every time he went somewhere where he shouldn't be, eating in a home he shouldn't be in. And that's why they called him a wine bibber. He loved the wine that he got served there. Or a glutton because he was always in someone's house eating. How do you think that the apostles and Jesus survived? They were an itinerant movement all over. How did they eat? You think they grew something in a garden? No, people brought food to them. And you think when these people, the scriptures don't mention it, but it's there. When people came to be healed, let me tell you, they didn't come empty handed. They came with food, they came with an animal, or they came with something to give to the. This is the Eastern people. This is what they were like. I'll never forget when I was traveling with Dr. Lambs. I don't want to take it. When I was
Good.
traveling with that, and I opened up all over the state of Texas, in Houston, in Austin, in Dallas, in Corpus Christi. I'd go one night a week, Wednesday night, in different places that I try to cover the main cities in Texas, teaching the Aramaic work. When I brought Dr. Lanza with me, and we were in Houston, there were a lot of Assyrian people there, and I loved it because they always brought food to him. They brought food. They brought different gifts to him. He wasn't. He was speaking at a hotel that I had arranged, and the people in Houston who were arranging it for me, and plus we put him on radio and everything too to bring people in. But a lot of Assyrians heard he was there, and they never came empty handed. They came with food.
Never.
And I loved it because when we got home, then we could have some of the Eastern food that they made. This is Jesus' teachings. It was based around food and love and sharing and caring. Mmm. Look at what it has become, a monument. Okay, we have it now. We got it now. We do it. But within those monuments, this needs to open up. It needs to open up for everyone. And this is why we have these sessions here. Does anyone else want to say something more? I didn't mean to get off on all that.
No, that's okay, Robbie. It's perfect. I think we might want to go into questions. Yeah, Hanny?
Yeah, yeah, we have a bunch of them. So
Oh, yeah, I see them. Okay. What are your thoughts about Christian mystics? There are many people who have experienced personal encounters with Jesus and God. The Catholic Church is more open to this than the Protestant churches. Don't just leave it to me. You all chime
yeah,
in
yeah,
too.
no, I mean, what again, as a mystic, as somebody who is, met Jesus, believes, follows the teachings of Jesus, do I need a Protestant church? Do I need a Catholic church? Do I want a poster of me given on Sundays? Do I want my bones to be buried under a church corner and visited by people? If you are an Eastern mystic, you don't want to be seen, you don't want to be noticed. And the thing about Jesus, what I love about Jesus's life is he ate, he drank, he was with the people, he was surrounded by people almost every minute of his life. He took some time off to reflect and recharge. We see that because you need that. But he knew that his ministry is about being with the people and teaching the people and showing the kingdom and showing the Father and showing how a family functions, a good functional family, not dysfunctional. We have a lot of dysfunctional families, but he wanted to show us the way to a functional family. So the mystics, I love them. They don't have to be associated with a religion, but their value is to bring that what they're learning, bring that simplicity, bring that love, bring that humbleness, and teach us how to participate with them and be like them, be examples because they are children of God. They are showing that. So I'm not sure what the question is, but I think regardless of church, regardless of who stamps your, I think I read recently there was like a millennial saint that got stamped by the church recently as the first one. And it's like this is a good person who's done good work. I don't need three priests to document three events. And, these are human mental exercises and laws. I see a lot of beautiful people. I met somebody recently that can't let a bee or an animal die in a swimming pool. And sometimes even, it's not a bee, it's, sometimes it's a wasp because they care about life, right? We'll never hear their name. They'll never have a poster. They'll never have a church named after them. But that's Jesus. That's the Father caring about everything, and that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about a system that certifies. We're talking about a way of living.
And mystic, just to be clear with everyone, by definition, is a person who seeks a direct personal experience of the divine, ultimate reality, or spiritual truth. So you all sitting here are mystics.
Yeah.
Everyone here is a mystic sitting here tonight, most likely. If you're a person who's seeking direct personal experience of the divine, ultimate reality, or spiritual truth. And so are you practicing mystically? That's the word from the East that we made a mystery. God is so mysterious. No, God is mystical. It is an opportunity to seek the ultimate truth of Creator. And in so much, we become mystics, which is different than people who adhere to dogma. And dogma is a statement or body of statements concerning faith or morals proclaimed by a church. So there's mystic. I'm seeking the source and sustainer of life and all the truth that comes from that. And then there's dogma. This group of people in this building or under this brand have said this is the truth and that's what you must adhere to or else.
And I want to say one more thing about the Protestant Catholic. I feel for the Protestant movement because they had to rise against the Catholic movement. But the foundational piece that they were fighting against is Western Christianity, and they missed. I feel, and I think that research proves that they did not. Martin Luther did not go study Aramaic and Jesus in the East. He just knew that the Catholics at his time were oppressive and not doing things the right way. So he rose against that. And now, for the bulk of Christianity, we compare those two factions. But what we're talking about is the origin, and the origin is lost, and that's why we keep trying to raise it up. So keep that in mind as you compare. And I know Protestant movement has a huge. It's kind of like if you put them on a scale, there are so many different versions of them. As is now Catholic, because they splintered as well, including like they're partnering with Greek Orthodox, which is a different flavor. But all these are religions; these are belief systems with the specific way of dressing and so forth, or not dressing. So some of the Protestant movement about changing the what a priest wears, or we don't call them priests, we call them ministers, and so it's all two systems struggling against a false foundation. We need to go back to the true foundation, and then mystics become. If you send me your name to the foundation, I print you a certificate of a mystic because you're trying, you're spending your Wednesday night here, not somewhere else. So
One other thing I want to say too about mysticism. Protestants are afraid of that word, mysticism and mystic. When I was lecturing in Arizona at the university there in Phoenix, that was one of the problems I had when I mentioned that there are seven keys that unlock Scripture, and one of them happened to be mysticism, which is your union with God, plain and simple. That's all it is. The person stood up, got very upset with it, and ran out. And I just got through doing for a fundamental group a whole TV show. In fact, they did two shows because it was so good. They liked it so well. It was fundamental. But one of the people that also came to hear me at the university ran back and told them that I believed in mysticism, and they canceled the whole thing. I said, they don't know the meaning. They don't know the meaning of the word mysticism. They think it's something spooky. The devil's in it. The devil's in it. No, no. That's true. What they say about the Roman Catholic Church is more open to it. But in the ancient world, they weren't.
No.
They were not. They killed them. They roasted them. They cut their heads off. They did all kinds of things. That's what the church did. And I'm talking about the Roman Catholic. So, and they know it too. They'll admit it. But they're more open to it now. But anciently, they weren't. But Protestantism, when it comes to that, anyone that has any, the only reason I'm even here today is because I saw Jesus mystically when I was 16 years old, because I was on the verge of committing suicide. And he appeared to me, and that settled me because I got confused over religion. I felt I was on my way to hell because I left the Roman Catholic Church and got mixed up in Protestantism and found out about all these other things, and that threw me off. That was just my personal experience in it. Okay. I just want to
And
say
that's the no, please, Ravi, that's a powerful message. That this is why we're in recovery. This is recovery work, because we're talking about Ravi Errico as a 16-year-old young man in such crossroads of an existential crisis and moral dilemma because of dogma, because of fear mongering, because of elitism that a group of people genuinely feels. It knows the total and absolute truth of the universe, and not just that, but it is the police then of it in the culture and society and your house and your life. Millions of people have been suicidal and did it because of religion. Christianity at all, right? Like, all of them have a story. Because wherever it is that you cinch up the flow of life that creator is trying to flow through, it's creation. And you, and I mean, we've got 6 kids, Brian and I. This is a lesson as parents, let alone strangers in the world. We do not own another life form. Even the children that I raise and call me mom and feed them, I'm a temporary placeholder for them until they are individuals who are self-sustaining, and then they're accountable to Allah Chaya themselves. The living God that made them, they have a direct, I'm mommy forever, but you're an individual who's got responsibility to creator because you're your own creation. Your soul is doing its own journey. As even your mother, I cannot own you and make you be what I want you to be and believe what I want you to believe and marry who I want you to marry and how many kids and give me 3 of them. And then you guys have to go to church with me and then make sure for Christmas you do this and then for Easter you do this and for the. That's choking people. It's breaking families. It's breaking families. And Jesus came to put not just your household and my household in order, but the entire household of humanity, that we could get along with each other. We don't have to believe exactly the same thing, eat the same food, say the same prayers, sing the same songs. We just have to have enough of attunement to creator to harmonize with all the other parts of the body. My thumb and fingers do not argue over which is better for me. I like them all. I don't want to lose any of them. My car accident 5 years ago left me blind in my right eye. We miss it. We. I walk differently. You see me doing this all the time while I'm on lives. I'm doing this all the time. That's a whole new thing for Rebecca. I miss that eye. And so does humanity get robbed of what's potential when we cut off from one another, when we turn our backs to one another, instead of bringing us together and healing and bringing peace and coexistence, at least camaraderie. Instead, we create war and we alienate and we divide. We don't know what we're missing. We don't know how good it could be if the whole body just worked together. But
Mhm.
that is what the Orchatam Sheikha
Yeah.
was have respect for the different parts of the body and respect that they're all different. So you're not going to treat your shoes like you treat your feet, like you treat your head or your hands or your eyes. Appreciate the differences, be responsible for the differences, and leave each part with dignity.
Let's see what the next question is. What is dogma and how it became powerful for a ritualistic mindset in religion?
We just talked about it. The dogma, by definition, are the doctrine and statements of belief of a particular system, particular church, particular organization. That is their rules. They're very specific. They belong to someone in particular. And I mean, how would it become powerful for ritualistic mindset in religion? I mean, we're looking at it. We're looking at each religion, each sect saying this is the way it must go. And it got their people, whether it got their people by force or coercion or free cheeseburgers on Sundays or they just loved the idea of what was being taught, people bought in. Some people are buying into all kinds of stuff, right? Like 2026, we're seeing that like, wow, people buy
Mhm.
in. There's always somebody for something, right? So each sect grew, built its dogma up, and history belongs to the victors. As politics and governments prevailed, the religion that they had, the dogma they had, because you have to remember religion and government was just one, right? King James was the king, and he commissioned the Bible. So as governments prevailed and took territory over, then the beliefs of not just political beliefs, not just the sociological systems, but the religious predominance of that culture then also took over. So if you got to win and you were the Greco-Roman Empire, then you get to take the message of Ishwa Masraya and do whatever you want with it
Yeah.
because history belongs to the victor. And so it takes a real serious seeker of truth to hear from spirit, there's more to this than you've been told.
Yeah.
And then it takes someone with the will to go, let me go look into this a little bit. And then they go to noohra.com and they buy a book, and then they buy another book and they take some classes. And pretty soon they're stirred up. And that's why we see personality changes when people get to the truth. That's why we see healings when people get to the truth, because they break out of the restriction of dogma that culture put on, and it allows the kingdom of heaven, Malkut Shmeya, which is the consulship of creator self being poured into you. You suddenly are on fire in life. I call it activating your great I am, the part and particle of the great I am that each of us is. That thing is like mitochondria in the cell. It's got to fire up, it's got to turn on so that life can be in you. And that is very different than dogma.
Yes. I like this one here that says, uh, it says here, two scriptures came to mind on your topic, and quoting the Lambda translation. Thank you for coming together to share your perspectives. Oh, you adulterers, do you not know? This is from the book of James 4:4, the letter of James, really. Do you not know that the love for worldly things is enmity with God? Whosoever therefore esteems worldly things is an enemy of God? Romans, Paul, do not imitate the way of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your minds, that you may discern what is good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. Beautiful. Thank you. And we have to close now, but before we do, we have just an announcement to make. I think was only one more in here. And so we want to make the announcements and then we'll close. And I want to remind the people, don't forget the class for June 12th, Saturday at 1 o'clock. Contact the foundation and register for the class, The Mystery of God, Humanity, and the Universe.
June
And I know,
13th.
what's that?
June 13th.
June
Oh, it's the
13th.
13th, not the
Yeah.
12th? I don't know why I had the 12th in my mind. I guess the 12 apostles. The 13th on Saturday. Okay. And Rebecca had an announcement.
Yes. So I have mentioned Recovering from Religion. That starts Tuesday nights, June 16th. It is a 7-week series. And really, I don't want anyone to feel pressure to do that because it's not a Bible study. It is a healing process. So
Mhm.
if you feel that that's something that's important for you in your journey, please consider that. And then, of course, in July, starting July 12th, I'm teaching, the guy that wrote this book, Aramaic Light on the Beatitudes by Reverend Dr. Rocco A. Errico. It is a 5-week deep dive into this book. The book is included with the tuition, and you get the recordings. Either of these programs, you'll get recordings and materials. Everything will be included for you. You can register at thegodlywomannetwork.com, which is my healing work line. And remember that the books always are a blessing because we produce them with Noohra Foundation. And so that helps us get the work out. And then 10% of proceeds also go to Noohra Foundation. So when you take these classes, you're blessing the work that we continue to put out into the world.
Do you have anything more to say, Annie?
Yeah. No, I really enjoy these sessions. I look forward to the next one. And I'm guessing next week, Rabbi, you'll do the Wednesday night?
Yeah, I do next Wednesday. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. I have the class.
Yeah, on Saturday?
Can you
Okay,
can you
let's
take
stop.
next
It, it,
Wednesday?
it, it could be me. Or
We'll
Rebecca.
draw straws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
God bless you, everyone.
Thank you
Yes.
all.
We love you.
Thank you, Robbie. Thank you, Reverend Hanny.
Thank you.
Good night.
Well, for heaven's sakes.